All right. Thank you guys for coming. This is a nice, small, intimate crowd. And this is kind of more of an intimate conversation about a reality that I think many of us, including myself, suffer from. Is there actually such a thing as work-life balance in this age of always on that we're all dealing with? For those who don't know me, I'm the global head of design at WPP's Team Detroit. I spoke yesterday on information design and the power of design and data. And I talked a little bit about my role and what it encompasses from the perspective of a global executive. But today I'm also going to talk about things from that perspective, as well as a mother, a friend, a wife, and the fact that is there such a thing, and can you achieve a bit of balance and homeostasis? Some days, this is how I feel when I am totally crushing it, and I'm just like, this is awesome, shit's going well, great client meetings. I joke it's a day where I had my cape and my lasso. And I love Wonder Woman for two reasons. One, she's a total badass, and two, she has great accessories. Love the bangles. And I think, other days, I saw this, by the way, the other day, and I was just like this. Totally. This is what I feel some days. And then on other days, when it's really rough, and I remind myself, so, what I'd like to ask is it possible to achieve balance between the two? From Wonder Woman to, God help her, Britney in 2007. And it leads me to ask, there are these two extremes, and I want to talk about this, from the perspective of, things that I've read, things that I've experienced, people that I've talked to, other executives, other coworkers, who, we have conversations and we talk about it, because I think we all want to succeed, in all areas of our lives. And there's times where you feel like you might be totally succeeding in one and totally failing in another, and that's normal. And I'm also going to talk about this not from a perspective of preaching. I do not have all the answers. I do not, claim to kind of have it solved and be on top of my game all the time. This is, there's that kind of constant struggle, and that's okay. I think another reason why I love talking about this and thinking about it is because, by me talking about it, it's reminding myself of things that it's easy to forget. There's things that, I believe, but, I fail often at achieving balance or trying to achieve balance. So I'm going to come right out of the gate to say, work-life balance is bullshit. I think it's a utopian notion. I don't think it actually exists. It's a bit like Lego Kitty. I think we've all seen the Lego movie. It's unrealistically attainable, and that's okay. I think, don't get me wrong, I love her. I mean, she's just rainbows and sunshine and sprinkles, but I think happiness is a choice. And I truly believe that you can choose how you're going to react to any situation, and having that perspective is really important. I think, to constantly be up and everything is great, it's impossible and it's exhausting. And I think it's human to feel that struggle and just accept it and embrace it, and it can make it a lot easier. Looking at, Unikitty through the lens of balance and looking at all of this, think of how challenging it is to constantly keep a scale in balance. So, the second one little thing goes heavier over here, then you're struggling to counteract it on this side. You got to put something over here, and then this side goes down. So you're constantly in this state of back and forth and that state of imbalance, and that can be truly exhausting. So what if we reframe our perspectives and not try to achieve balance, but look at balance through a different lens, look at balance in a different way? Because even Unikitty loses her shit sometimes, and that's okay. It makes me love her even more because she's real in a fake character sort of way. So that said, I just want to share a few things that I think about, that I'd love you guys to think about. And I think it's important not just for us, and I'm going to talk about this more on a personal level, but not just for us to think about this personally, but we need to think about this as agencies, as studios, as corporations, because the most important thing in our business is our talent. And if we are not nurturing them, if we are not giving them opportunities to find their own way to have balance, then you're going to have burnt out employees. You're going to have employees that aren't giving it their all. You can have people that are so talented and so passionate and absolutely love what they do, but if they start reaching that end and they don't have the mechanisms to cope with this always-on reality, they're not going to be happy, they're not going to grow, and they're not going to be able to give, the work its best. So a couple things to think about. One, it is all about perspective. Like I said, it's easy to get worked up over the little things. It's easy to kind of choose to be stressed. And I say choose because, again, I firmly believe that life happens, right? But 90% of it is how you react to it. And you can choose what you're going to worry about, what you're going to, kind of what hill you're going to die on, and what you're going to kind of let roll. Where do you need to focus? I think, for me, when it takes like 700 minutes to get my 7-year-old ready in the morning and he decides to wear black socks with white shoes, as a designer, I die a little bit inside, but that's not what I'm going to freak out about at that moment. It's how do we want to start our day? Do we want to start our day with a great attitude, or do we want to start our day, both kind of all grumbly and upset? This quote from Andy Warhol: "Sometimes people let the same problem make them miserable for years when they could just say, so what?" And he says that's one of my favorite things to say. And I love that because, again, there's certain times where, can you just say so what and focus on something else? How relevant is it? Is the world going to implode? Are things going to die? Or can you just say, you know what? So what? I'm going to move on and I'm going to focus my energy, my efforts, my emotions here. I think it's a constant reminder that we are in control. Things aren't just going to happen to us. We can determine how we're going to move forward and what our future reality is going to look like, whether it's 2 minutes from now, 5 months from now, or a year from now. I think empowering yourself is so important. To say no. Struggle with this. Type A, I love everything, I love everyone, I want to get involved, I want to help, I want to make things better. Some of us are just wired that way, and I think for those of you guys that are here, you're probably wired that way too. But it's okay to say no, and sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is say no, or say later. And it's okay to kind of push some things off that might not be where you're needed right at this moment. And it can also be freeing, but you also have to do it without that self-judgment. You can't kind of then say no and then feel guilty about it, because if you're feeling guilty, it's because you did something wrong. If you're saying no, you're not doing anything wrong. You're taking care of yourself, and you're figuring out where you're most needed, where your energy is needed. That's a positive thing. So I think it's okay to kind of let go of that self-judgment, that self-doubt, and trust your gut, trust your instincts. I mean, that's something I've learned. I use research and science and everything I know from a creative standpoint in my business, but I also use my gut, and I use it when it comes to that's the right move, that's the right business decision, that's the right creative choice. You have to do that for yourself too on a personal level in the business environment. I think it's also good to remember that everything is relative. No one has a perfect balanced life. You might see something over here that might be perfect for them, but that might not be perfect for you. Again, everyone has a different perspective. We don't always, see things as they are. We see things as we are. And to have that be able to kind of have a little bit of a more clear perspective on, what is the reality of the situation for me, can really help. I think also, if we come at things from the perspective of gratefulness, that can also really shift the balance, to focus on those good things, focus on those positive moments, and let some of the things that are bringing us down kind of go to the side for a bit. Because when we start looking and approaching things from that perspective of gratefulness, it can really shift kind of how you're going to move forward. I think we also have to remember that one person's notion of success is different than ours, and that's okay. You've got to think about, what makes you happy, where do you want to be, how do you want to grow, and focus on things that are going to take you in that direction. You can have it all, but just not at the same time. And this was something that really struck a chord for me, that there's, I can do anything, but not everything necessarily. And I think when you look at things that way, it can be very empowering, but it can also be freeing at the same time, which is a really nice balance. I feel like you go through periods where you're either winning at home, or you're winning with your friends, or you're winning in your relationships, or you're winning at work. But are you ever truly winning at all of those things at the same time? No, but that's okay. Because again, if you're choosing where you're most needed at that point in time, and you're able to dial certain things up and other things down and have that ebb and flow, you're gonna give each of those areas of your life everything at certain points of time, and especially when it's needed. Rarely do they overlap. Sometimes yes, and that's where the cape and the bangles and the Wonder Woman thing come in, and when they don't, that's okay too. It's not an attainable goal to try to achieve kind of perfection in all areas of your life. It's a utopian reality, and it's exhausting and it's tiring. And I think it can lead to stress, and it can lead to being ineffective, and it can also lead to sickness too, which I'll get into a little bit later. So I think it's really important to reframe your notion of balance. Think of balance not over the course of every day. Think about it over the course of a year. Think about it over the course of 6 months. Think about it over the course of a month. Working in marketing, communications, advertising, design, it can be a shit show sometimes. I mean, things are going up and down. You've got late nights, long weekends. So you might have a crazy week, but then how do you kind of bring it back to normal a little bit that week after? So I think if you look about your life in the end and you say, over this year, was it a good year? Am I feeling positive of what I accomplished or what I affected or who I helped or how I feel? And when you can get that sense over the bigger picture, I think you start to worry less about those little things and kind of sweat the small stuff. I mentioned this a second ago too, and as I talked about the other point, you can do anything, just not everything. I think it's knowing when to say when, and a cherished friend of mine that I'm very close with, another coworker, reminded me of a yoga principle, and this was something I needed to hear this year myself. Know when to pick it up, and know when to let it lie. And I think that's really important, especially for people, who might want to constantly pick it up. I can help with that, I can help with that, because they're coming at it from a genuine, kind of curiosity, or a genuine desire to care, or a genuine desire to help. But I think there's times where it's like, do I need to pick that up? Or should I empower someone else to pick that up and give someone else a chance to run and lead? Or do I need to pick that up because I'm the only one that probably can help get that and shift it into the right direction? Or is that something I can just let go and focus on something else at this point in time? It's a slippery slope to feeling overwhelmed, and I think that's something that we really need to think about, but it's a lot easier if you don't assume every problem is yours to solve. There's a lot of people out there that love to solve problems too, or want to help, or be valued, or be empowered. And so I think thinking a little bit outside of yourself and about the big picture, it can be really wonderful as a leader, as a mentor, to lead teams and to empower them, to pick things up when you know that you shouldn't be the one picking them up. It's also, personally a challenge for me, and what I found is that if you don't find ways to find your unique kind of sense of what balance is, the universe will find it for you. And this is something that, I struggled with about, 10 years ago. I was diagnosed with lupus, and it's an autoimmune disease where your body attacks itself. And it's one of those things that you're just constantly exhausted. And, what I found is that I was going at 200% nonstop, and I had a lot of things going on in my life. And, all of a sudden the universe was like, rewind, too much. And, for me, it was a blessing, because it's my flag. It's my thing that, as soon as I start going kind of too far into that one side of the pendulum, from an overarching perspective, I need to kind of stop, look at everything, and kind of back off in certain areas. But it's the thing that stops me when I start getting a little bit out of balance. And I encourage you guys to find your own flags, find your own thing that really, kind of tweaks your awareness of, what, things are off and I need to fix it. Then it can be a little thing, it can be a big thing, but if you don't find the thing that gets you kind of back in balance, if you will, your own sense of balance, something else I truly believe will find it for you. So these words, I'm so tired of these words. These are bad words. These are not good words. Multitasking, crazy busy, always connected. I think it's one of those things that, yes, we live in a state of always connected, and it can be a really wonderful thing for business, for connections. But I think when we think of things like, crazy busy or multitasking, I talked yesterday about how the brain works, and that the brain can only function with so many inputs, and at some point it stops prioritizing. So multitasking can actually be highly inefficient. So something I'm trying to practice more of this year is single-mindedness, and really giving all of my attention to one thing at that moment in time, and then shifting all my attention to something else next, so that I'm giving 100% of my brain, my heart, my emotion into what I'm focusing on that point in time, and not trying to do many things at once, half-ass. So I think, these words have kind of been culturally accepted as a badge of honor, but I think we need to stop using them and start thinking of things like focused and, and single-minded, and, and even the word busy. I've actually banned using the word busy at home. How's your day? Busy, crazy busy. New adjectives. So I encourage you all to find new adjectives to describe, what your experiences were throughout your day or throughout your week. Those words don't make you Wonder Woman or Superman. They make you ineffective. And I think when we talk about everything that's coming at us and how busy our lives are and how busy our work is and how much we're needed, we can't afford to be ineffective right now. We have to be more focused and more kind of dedicated to where our attention is needed, so that we can be more effective, in terms of the cultural and business reality that we're all surrounded by. So I think we need to think about working smarter. It isn't about working harder. It isn't about working more. It's about working smarter. And this is something, I've seen from a lot of, some of my close, working mom friends, where it's kind of like, I got to pick up the kids. I got to get here. I got to drop off. So in those, 6 hours, those 8 hours, I am 100% focused on this, and you get home and it's bath time and bedtime and story time and all of that. And it's like, then if you need to kind of focus back in and check back in, I encourage you guys to find ways that you can work smarter. And I think there's so many amazing corporations like Team Detroit and other corporations within WPP that value kind of that flexibility and understanding that people work differently. And in order for people to be most effective, sometimes you have to allow that flexibility and allow those things that are going to help people and enable them to do just that. I use a lot of task lists. I've got friends and coworkers that love to keep track of things digitally. Other people that are just absolutely pencil, paper, notebook. But I encourage you to find your system, because that can also help in terms of prioritization. I absolutely love, I'm neurotic. I love notebooks. I love lists. I've got lists for home. I've got lists for, inspiration. I've got lists of things I want to read. I have lists of things I need to do. I have a system where I make a little open box, and then I write things next to it in all caps. And then if I have subcategories, it's upper, lower case. Again, I'm a designer and a typographer. As soon as I start the task, I put a single line through the square. As I'm halfway through the task, I color in the bottom triangle. When I finish the task, I color in the whole square. Neurotic? Totally, that's who I am, but I'm embracing who I am in order to find a process that helps me do what I need to do. So I encourage you guys to try different things, try different ways to keep yourself on track, to keep yourself focused. Find your method, test a few, see what works. There also is enough time, and I know we all feel time strapped, and just embrace it, accept it, it's a reality. But I think it's in how we use it, how we share it, how we protect it, or how we waste it. And there's a lot of time sucks, believe me. I've contemplated, do I keep my Facebook account? Do I delete it? What about all my social media? I love it. I love the connections. I love what it does for business, our brands, my friends. But at the same time, are there times where I'm diving into spaces that are distracting me, where I should be focusing somewhere else? And so I think it really is figuring out, again, where you're needed, where is my time and energy, so that you're most efficiently using your time where you're needed most. I talked a bit about practicing single-mindedness. I think, prioritizing and kind of not getting caught up in things that can kind of take you off track. So there's so many tools and tricks in terms of even your inbox. I get so many emails. At any point, I could have 400 unread emails in my inbox that I'm trying to manage from a personal standpoint, a business standpoint, a global standpoint, and to be able to, filter through that. There's times where, does your email constantly ping, and you're working on something, and you're creating a deck or something for a client, and your emails keep popping up, and you're like mid-sentence, you're like, what's that? Mid-sentence, oh, I gotta answer that. So is there a way that you can then pause that maybe and turn off that feature and give yourself an hour to focus on something, then go back? Are those 5 minutes or 10 minutes maybe where you let something sit is that gonna create utter destruction? Rarely, but I guarantee if someone needs to get a hold of you and you don't answer that email and it's urgent, then they're gonna call your desk, and then you don't answer your desk, then they're gonna call your cell, then they're gonna text you, then they're gonna come and track you down. Then you know, okay, this is where my attention is now needed, and now I'm gonna focus on that, and that's okay. So I think define your time boundaries. I encourage some of my team to block out working time in their calendars so that they don't get swallowed up by 50 meetings, because there is time where, you know what, attending this meeting is not where I'm needed most. It's an important meeting, or it's gonna be a relevant meeting, but is that where I need to focus my time? No, maybe I need to focus it on working on X right now, or working on Y, or helping someone, or trying to solve a problem. So again, I think it's really looking at your week, planning ahead, being flexible when things kind of go awry, but really trying to protect and focus your time where you're needed most. This was a quote I talked about yesterday in my power of design and data talk, but and I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Our brains are configured to make a certain number of decisions per day. Once we reach the limits, we cannot make any more, regardless of how important they are. And it's from a great book by Daniel J. Levitin, The Organized Mind. I encourage you guys to read it because it really gives insights into how our brains work and things that we can do to make our lives better in this kind of age of always on. Give yourself a parking lot. So this is something that has helped me. I keep a sheet of paper kind of when I'm sitting at my desk working, or I have a certain page in my notebook when I travel around to meetings, and if there's something that comes up that I'm like, oh, I need to deal with that, by taking it and taking your attention and just jotting that down and kind of putting it off in a parking lot and letting it go, what happens is it's not that thing that's in the back of your mind that keeps taking cognitive processing power away from what you're trying to focus on. So it's kind of like when you're in a brainstorming meeting and someone said, oh yeah, that's a great, yeah, but we'll talk about that later, and they go write it on that giant Post-it in the corner that they call the parking lot, that those are all those other things that aren't relevant to the immediate conversation, but we don't want to forget about. Do the same thing for yourself, because that can be really helpful to keep yourself focused on the task at hand. I think we also have to use technology. Oop, did I go the wrong way? Sorry about that. One more. Use technology for good, not for distraction. So I think, do you guys get up and check your phone first thing in the morning before you do anything? Like literally roll out of bed, pull it off your nightstand and check your phone? Show of hands, I wanna know. Stop it, stop it. So that used to be me, and I'd be like, ugh, and then all of a sudden, how am I starting my day? Oh my God, these emails. Okay, I gotta respond to this right now. I mean, it's this constant, look at my calendar, all of this stuff. So immediately I'm starting my day in kind of rush mode, stress mode of all the stuff that's coming. So I created boundaries for myself. And I said, the first thing I have to do is pee, right? Shouldn't we all do that first before checking our phone? The second thing I do is I chug a giant bottle of water, because I realized that, between coffee and the tequila down here, I was not drinking enough water. But again, water first. I go and I make my coffee, I let my dog out, I feed her, because shouldn't she be let out before I check my phone? Probably. And those are the boundaries. So again, I'm kind of easing into my day. And then once the coffee's made, I sit down, I look at the to-do list that I set up the night before so that I know exactly what I should be focusing on that next morning. And then I check my email. And then I have kind of that half hour of quiet before I'm trying to make my 7-year-old not wear black socks with white shoes. And that way you're kind of easing in and you're choosing what frame of mind and what mindset you want to start your day. And it sounds small, it sounds silly, or it sounds little, but it makes a difference. And I think I also set out a lights out screen time rule. There's times where I have trouble sleeping, and not because I'm just constantly wired, but also, with my lupus and what I struggle with, I don't always sleep well. And so I realized as I was staying up till 10 or 11, 12 at night, looking at my laptop or looking at my phone, and then what I started reading in terms of the scientific data about all of that light affecting how well you can sleep and how rested you're gonna sleep, I realized I needed to kind of back that out a little bit, and then again, be more efficient with the other hours of my day, or get up earlier so that I'm starting fresh and kind of trying to not have that laptop open, maybe past 10 at night. There's times, I'm not gonna lie, where I'm up till 2, 3 a.m., cranking on something that I couldn't get to. But I've been trying to not make that the norm. And what I find is that I am sleeping better and I am sleeping more rested, and that my mind is so much clearer and more efficient at 5:30 in the morning or at 6 in the morning or at 6:30 in the morning to focus on those things that might have taken me twice as long if I did it after a long, exhausting day at midnight. These are 3 things that are common sense. As humans, we have to do these to survive, yet somehow they become negotiable. These are non-negotiables. I think these are things that, you know, how many of you skip breakfast? A Bloody Mary does not count. You know, how many of you did not, okay, I can't talk about this here because none of us got sleep because we were all out at the amazing Team Detroit party until like 2 a.m. last night. But these are the things on a normal week when you're not at South by Southwest in Austin that have to be your non-negotiables. A healthy breakfast, not eating lunch only at your desk while you're doing 2 other things, getting exercise. It's been proven that some of the most successful executives in multinational corporations have the most rigid sleep schedule, healthy eating schedule, and a religious exercise schedule. Because again, if you're not taking care of your body and your mind, it is not gonna take care of what you need it to. I mean, that's the bottom line. And exercise is so amazing for stress and kind of mental clarity. You know, when I go for a 2-mile run or a 10-mile run, I am feeling 1,000 times better than when I started. And sometimes some problems or things I was stressing about or worrying about, you kind of marinated on, you know, on it while you're running. And when you get done, sometimes you find that solution, or you find clarity, or you find, you know what, that's something I can let lie, not something I need to pick up. So I encourage you to create your non-negotiables. You know, even being a working mom at home, I had to create non-negotiable workout days where no matter what, I get Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. That's it. Those are my days to work out. Nothing else can come in. You know, I get these time slots. My husband can have Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. But again, it wasn't, well, I want to work out. No, I want to work out. You know, it has to be something that is a given. It's a non-negotiable. So I think the same thing for when you go to bed, when you wake up. I'm reading another wonderful book by Arianna Huffington, her book Thrive. And I don't know if any of you guys have read it. I highly encourage it. But she had a horrible fall where she, you know, fractured her eye socket, and they did all these tests to figure out, you know, was she okay? What happened? She was exhausted. She wasn't sleeping. And so, you know, she is a huge champion for these principles and the importance of things like sleep, because again, without sleep, you're not going to be effective and you're not going to be healthy. Be flexible. The game is constantly changing. You know, in our technological landscape, in our culture, in business, everything is changing, and it's changing at the speed of light. That's just our reality. So you might come up with solutions that are going to help you tomorrow. Hopefully some of the things I said today will help you as well. But I think you have to be open to what might work for you. Something might work today, it might not work 6 months for you. Things in your life might change, your position might change, your job might change, and to be open and flexible to looking at new ways to find and achieve your version of balance is important. And you have to accept that. You know, rigidity is paralyzing. You can't direct the wind, but you can adjust your sails. I think you know, obstacles that can provide challenges, you have to look at them as opportunities to make you stronger, you have to be forgiving when there are things where you feel like you failed or you struggled. And I think, you know, being forgiving of yourself and saying, you know what, yesterday sucked, I was not great, I had no cape, I had no bangles, and that's okay, because tomorrow I'm going to try and have that cape again. And I think don't beat yourself up over those rough days. Learn from them, forgive yourself, and move on. Let it go, shake it off. I think if you set realistic expectations for others all the time, you set realistic expectations for your friends, for your family, for your coworkers. How often do we set realistic expectations for ourselves? Not as often. And we're just as important. You know, you forgive others when they fall short. It's just as important to forgive yourself and give yourself that same courtesy. It takes a freaking village, you know. It's okay to lean on each other. It's okay to lean on a coworker and be like, dude, I need help with this today. You know, do you have a few minutes? Or to lean on family, or to lean on friends. I think, you know, everyone struggles, everyone needs help. It's okay to ask and then return the favor. You know, lean in on someone who you just see in their face and you say, are you okay today? You look like, you know, what's going on? How can I help? And I think that's something that we need to create more of a culture of that kind of give and take, that help, because it's so easy to get so kind of single-minded and focused on even just ourselves and forget to look in that outer periphery. And I think that, you know, finding your support system is key. Tap into it, and then, you know, like I said, return the favor. I think two things are really important that I'd like to leave you with to think about. One, think about what you're passionate about, kind of what fuels your fire, and focus your energies there. Where are your talents? Where are your gifts? And focus there on how you can use them and share them. And what makes you happy? Again, life is short. We don't have a lot of time here, so I, encourage you guys to think about these things and, how you can bring that to life and what you do at work on a daily basis and what, your life around that as well. And think about, where am I most needed right now? And that's something that has helped me tremendously because there's so many areas where I'm needed. There's times where I'm hands-on, sleeves rolled up, in the weeds, creating something, and then there's times where I'm, guiding something on a much bigger picture, theoretical or global scale. And in that range, I can be pinged for things 1,000 times and figuring out, well, do I help here or here or here? Again, putting on that filter, where am I most needed right now? It can be that you're home with a sick kid. It can be that you need to help an ailing family member. It can be that there's a client meeting, where you need to be that mind in that room to help guide something. Or it could be that you need to be sitting down with your interns and mentoring them. There's an entire range. So again, think about where am I most needed, and it's okay to focus, allow yourself to be single-minded and focus your energies there, and then prioritize the other things in the other areas after that. And lastly, please remember, no matter what, you are awesome. Try to focus on the good moments every day. Do something to help someone else. Then it makes all your stuff seem, kind of way less worrisome, right? Be proud of you, because some days it's a struggle just getting out of bed. I think you can chalk it up as a win, and on the days you can't, it's okay to say F it. That's it. Thank you.